past 24 hours, the Iran-Israel conflict has maintained a fairly steady pace. Israel has so far struck over 1,100 sites in Iran since the conflict began, with 20 targets hit in the last 24 hours. Now, this includes the Arak reactor site in Iran, as well as missile bases in Tehran. There is also reports that Iranian missile sites in East Azerbaijan have also been hit, but no one has validated that claim from either Israel or Azerbaijan. The Israeli military reports that since June 16th, it has destroyed approximately 100 of Iran's 200 ballistic missile launchers and 35 to 45% of its estimated 1,000 missiles. These attacks have resulted in 224 deaths in Iran, including 98 civilians and 126 security personnel, with over 1,300 injuries. Israel is reporting 40 deaths and hundreds injured in recent days due to Iranian strikes. Now, because of this focus on Iran and Israel, we aren't really seeing a lot of news come out of Gaza. However, it has been reported that in the last 48 hours, some 80 Palestinians have died to the Israeli military, with it being reported that most were civilians who were supposedly lining up for aid. Now, Iran's retaliation, called Operation True Promise 3, has been its most forceful ever despite their diminished capacity. The country is generally launching waves of 20 to 40 ballistic missiles per barrage, with the total number of around 380 launched since June 16th, and they are at targets such as Tel Aviv, Ramat Gan, Jerusalem, and Haifa. One strike hit Soroka Hospital in Beersheba, injuring 32, but Iran is claiming that they were targeting an Israeli underground military complex that was supposedly under the hospital. Another Iranian attack killed 24 civilians in a Petativka residential building, as well as 3 in Haifa. Iran has deployed its new Fatah-1 hypersonic missile and is now using Shahed drones for the first time, though most of those are being intercepted by Israel's Arrow 3 and U.S.-assisted Patriot and THAAD missile defenses. Despite the fact that they've launched 380 missiles, fewer than 100 have succeeded in reaching their target, with most intercepted over Jordan, Saudi Arabia, and Syria, causing limited damage, things like shrapnel injuries and structural harm, but no confirmed military site destruction. Meanwhile, Iran's offensive capability is dwindling, compounded by a near total internet blackout and a pro-Israel hacker group disrupting Bank SEPA in Iran. Such actions against civilian networks and finances are part of Israel's attempt to push the Iranian people to overthrow the Ayatollah. Prime Minister Netanyahu has called for the Iranians to rise up against their, quote, brutal dictatorship. However, the problem here is with all regime change efforts, this really goes only one of two ways. The first is it galvanizes the people around the Ayatollah and rallies the Iranian people against Israel. The other way is that regime change does happen, but there's really no clear alternative to take over, and we see chaos. And often leads to the development of massive amounts of terrorist activity. Now, Iran has also threatened escalation against the U.S. if they get involved, specifically focusing on U.S. bases in Iraq and Bahrain. However, they would have to likely use proxies such as Hamas and Hezbollah, and they are severely weakened. Iranian threats to close the Strait of Hormuz also remain unfulfilled as well. Now, the United States has not joined offensively, but maintains 40,000 troops, as well as the USS Nimitz carrier group, some F-16s, F-22s, F-35s, B-2 bombers, as well as logistics support, all on standby, with some assets aiding Israel's defense by intercepting missiles. President Trump has stated he's considering using bunker-busting bombs on sites like Fordo. These are bombs that the United States have, but Israel does not, and they are far more capable for a site like Fordo. Trump did say, quote, "We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran," and hints at knowing the location of the Ayatollah, but is holding back on killing him, apparently. Now, there continues to be this interesting slip of the tongue coming from multiple people within Trump's inner circle, as well as MAGA folks in Congress. This use of the term "we" when it comes to strikes on Iran. Now, it could simply mean that we are showing solidarity with Israel in the sense of we, but it also could mean that we are actively participating secretively in strikes in Iran with Israel. It is not entirely clear if that is the case, but the continued use of "we" in this context is raising eyebrows. What's even stranger is domestically we have Democrats like Senator John Fetterman pushing for strikes against Iran, noting that, quote, "bombing and destroying their nuclear facilities is about peace." Meanwhile, MAGA supporters like Trump's own Tulsi Gabbard and Tucker Carlson are warning against deeper involvement, citing Iran's lack of a nuclear weapon, pushing more for U.S. isolationism. Nonetheless, U.S. involvement seemingly hinges on Trump's decision, but we don't know what that decision is or if he's made that decision. Regardless, a decision to help Israel risks Iranian retaliation against U.S. bases in the region. Now, coming out of Russia, Putin has offered to mediate for a peaceful Iranian nuclear program while addressing Israeli concerns, and has also warned against the U.S. getting involved, though no firm military support is confirmed despite the partnership between Iran and Russia. This obviously has angered Iran, with some Iranian officials saying they will remember who helped them in this time and who did not, which is a clear rebuke of Russia, who Iran has helped in their fight against Ukraine. Oil prices have risen 17% over the past month due to instability in the Middle East, and this actually helps Russia because their primary funding method for their war is oil sales. So more expensive oil means more revenue going into Russia. And there's something to be said about the support of this war coming out of Russia in order to fund their war effort in Ukraine, but this obviously runs very much counter to Iran and their needs, who have also helped Russia, so it's a bit of a catch-22 for the Russians at this point. Nonetheless, this war shows no signs of stopping in the near term, though the capacity for Iran to retaliate is dwindling, so we'll have to keep an eye out on where this goes over the next few days.